Fresh and Buds.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh. You guys can call me Tom, and you guys are all my buds. And I am joined by a bud from Down Under, Mr. the Tall Timmy. I guess we can call you Paul. Paul's your real name, but the Tall Timmy is here. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on the Fresh and Buds podcast. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, very happy to have you here. I've been following your stuff for a little bit now, and we finally got some time to, sit down and chat. It's a little hard sometimes with the time zones, but we got it going. Now, I want to talk a little bit about you before we kind of get into kind of our main topic for the podcast, which is going to be kind of dealing with a narrow meta, which we're kind of experiencing right now. And we're both players. It seems like to me that kind of like to be a little bit different when we sit down with a deck. We don't want to just play the best deck. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, most definitely. Naughty by name, naughty by nature. I am a Timmy at heart, and I definitely, not that I intentionally go against the grain. The decks that I usually am drawn to, aren't good.
Yeah. I'm usually the same way. Now, can you explain to the listeners what a Timmy is? This is like old school, I guess, verbiage for like Magic players back in the day. I think there was like Timmys and I forget what the other ones were. The
Johnny,
Spikes.
so it's an old sort of somewhat like cliche term. It's like the typical TCG archetype. So you had your Timmys, your Johnnies, and your Spikes. They were the three. I think there's been a couple of new ones thrown in the mix lately, and I think on the most part, most people are probably a little bit of everything. Okay, so the whole the whole Timmy thing is, in a way, I feel like Timmys get the rough end of the stick a lot of the time. And I do think Timmys are underappreciated, and I don't feel that they have representation. So that's what I'm here to do. And I lean into that a little bit. Back when I played Magic, people used to call me a filthy Timmy all the time. And yeah, so I just decided, and I am pretty tall. So I just decided to run with it. It seemed quite appropriate.
So what kind of play style does a Timmy normally like? I guess
I,
go for.
I'd say Timmy's like, they're just usually quite naive or gullible about uh, the reality of the game that they're playing. They're usually not really too concerned about the meta. They often think they are much better than they actually are. They usually blame everything else for their losses besides themselves, whether it's luck or circumstance, or they're always looking for an excuse. Um, you know, that's typical Timmy behavior, and Timmys will generally get overexcited over the silliest things. And in Magic, a Timmy would always keep a bad hand just with that 1% chance you were going to get a payoff. And I was so guilty of that. Geez, I used to love keeping risky hands in Magic just because I knew there was that 1% chance it was the God hand if I drew the right cards. But it never worked. But a Timmy's just addicted to that way of play style. So yeah, I'd
I
say
guess
that's what makes it Timmy and Timmy.
Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of that in me as well, and I guess I'm a Timmy with a little spin. I guess a Tommy. Well, that's who I am. But but what would be the equivalent of that in Flesh and Blood? So a Timmy in Flesh and Blood probably looks at like something like, oh geez, I don't know, like Swing Big, and they're like, I mean, not that Swing Big's a bad card, but they're like, oh, I'm gonna build my whole deck around Swing Big. I'm gonna hit hard and hit big, and it's gonna be the best thing ever.
Yeah, like a Timmy sometimes is under some grand illusions that what they do is the best. as well. So they might be closed-minded to what other people say. So a Timmy might grab Sir Bolton and be like flat out, nah, this is the best deck. This is the truth.
It
I've
is.
only lost on these occasions, but only because of bad luck, not because of the deck. So it's more so not just a way a play style. I guess it also transcends that into, a person's character and their outlooks on the game. And then, Rudy over at Alpha Investments, he often refers to, a person's worldviews makes them a Timmy, or how someone approaches life is a Timmy. So, it's kind of like a bit of tongue in cheek that I sort of feel like, the Timmies are getting the rough end of the stick. They're getting, looked down on, or as they're fools or idiots. And I'm like, Timmies, rise up. You are a very important part of a TCG game. And, I always joke around and say you can't have a successful TCG without a legion of Timmies behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree 100%. So, well, let's get into the meat of it. The Tall Timmy, you started quite successful YouTube channel for Flesh and Blood called the Tall Timmy. Started about 9 months ago. And in your first video, you mentioned you had played 0 games of Flesh and Blood. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was Princess Spike's, my middle daughter's birthday. I went out with her. We went ice skating, and I picked up a selfie stick for the first time. Went to a electronic boutique, EB Games, bought a packet of first edition Monarch, and I made my first video that afternoon. I think I made 2 videos that afternoon. One, me just talking, and one opening the pack. And yeah, I'd never played the game before then. I'd never even opened a pack of Flesh and Blood cards.
Now, had you like heard of it at point? Because it comes from the Southern Hemisphere, New Zealand, just like your neighbors over there.
Correct. I'd first the one of my LGSs that I was playing Magic with at the time, they, I believe, TO'd the very first calling in Australia or Sydney, perhaps. And I was quite friendly with the LGS owner, and I saw the welcome deck set up at his shop with the Flesh and Blood, all the branding and assets. He had some posters up. And whenever I inquired about this game, this is when it first came out, I was always told it's a new game. Maybe it's not going to be that good. Another Keyforge, it's going to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard about it again about 6 months, 12 months later. I inquired about it. I said, what's this game doing? And then I just kept getting negative feedback. So whenever I asked about the game, which was, 2 or 3 times over a 12-month period, I always just got negative feedback about it.
That's
So
a
I had
shame.
heard of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I think the script has flipped quite a bit on the feedback on the game at this point. But you mentioned you played Magic beforehand. Had you played any other TCGs, or was it just Magic?
Just Magic, man. Just Magic right from when I was a kid. I played for a couple of years when I was very, very young. I don't know, 9, 10 years old, perhaps, around that time, around 4th edition, 5th edition Mirage, kind of that era. And
Mm-hmm.
then I basically went on a 16-year hiatus and got back into Magic around the start of 2013.
Okay.
And I played it pretty full on for a good 7 years.
And you really experienced your inner Timmy again
Oh
after
yeah.
that 16-year hiatus. It felt good.
Oh, oh yeah. Just felt nothing could change, Tommy. Nothing could change. Just the way I was approaching the game as a 9-year-old, as a grown man. Well, supposedly a grown man. Nothing could change.
I mean, I find that I approach all my games the same way. It's like I like to be punished by doing things. I'm a Levia player, as the listeners know. I just like making things hard for myself. So I understand the kind of ethos kind of going into these games. It never really changes for us now. Had you created any other content before the Tall Timmy channel, or was that the first time?
Very first time, my man. As you know, even setting up this call, it took me a little while to get the audio working. So no, I'm still very new at this. Very new on. Yeah, I'd never done a YouTube video, never created content, never had a Twitter account, anything like that. Never used editing software, Photoshop, Discord. This is all very, very new to me. I'm learning a lot. Geez, I've learned so much in the last 9 months, and I've got heaps of good mates that are helping me out, figure things out. It's awesome, but it's still very much a new experience to me, and it's awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, for someone who had never really created content, and maybe that's almost the beauty of it, and why you're so successful is you're not going in with any set kind of I have to be this way. You're just being unapologetically yourself, and I think everybody loves it. I mean, I know I do, and I think that is, I would say, why you've been so successful so far. Um, so, what really pushed you? Like you mentioned, you just picked up the Monarch pack and the selfie stick, and was that it? You were just like, I'm just going to start doing this.
Well, it's like if I backtrack a bit, when I said I got back into Magic in 2013, when I was first getting back into it, I went to YouTube because I had no idea where the game was at, how it was really played, and I was trying to find out information on what drafting is. I had no idea. And back then in 2013, there was barely any Magic the Gathering content creators, only a handful on YouTube. And there was one guy, I think his name was like Jace, the Mind Sculptor, or an American fella. And anyway, he had a video on how to draft. And over the next 6 months, I thought to myself, I should do this. I should make a YouTube channel about Magic because there just wasn't much out there. But life got in the way. I procrastinated. My kids were very young at the time, and I was working flat chat, and I just put it on the back burner, Tommy. So when I started and I made the decision to jump into Flesh and Blood, I didn't want to have that regret again, and I wanted to try it and have that creative outlet. And I saw that there wasn't a lot of content on Flesh and Blood, comparatively to where Magic was at, for obvious reasons. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to actually not procrastinate, not put this one on the back burner and not have any regrets about it. And I really wanted to document my journey into this game, and then sort of things evolved from there, where I've just really sort of almost the channel's mission is to kind of, grow the game, energize the player base, and just do something different and exciting.
And you really capture that, and I look at your content, and I do relate it a little bit to mine, right? We like to be somewhat informative, but we want to be entertaining. I think is probably our most important goal. But we also are somewhat competitive and somewhat casual at the same time. Is that kind of what you set out to do when you kind of made this channel and kind of theorized like what you wanted to put into the world?
In some ways, I guess, but in some ways, like, you see by my channel, even today, that there's no rhyme, no reason to it. Like, I still haven't really been, like, I've had lots of people tell me, Paul, if you just stick to this sort of type of video, you'll be much more, you'll get much more views or whatever. But I'm not really concerned about that. I haven't really solidified the direction of the channel, I suppose. I think that'll come with time, but no, I just generally just make what I want to make, and I always have more ideas than time, basically. So there's always stuff that I just can't get to. But no, I never really set out, Tommy, to sort of make certain videos or create certain content. I've just kind of gone with the flow and just uploaded whatever I feel like.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. I gotta say, I did love recently. You did a video on how to deal with salty opponents, and then like right, like almost like within a week, you uploaded a video about how to tilt your opponents. It was like, okay, here's how you deal with the salty opponents, and then I think even somebody on video commented is like, oh, Tall Timmy tells you how to deal with salty opponents, and then tells you how to make them salty, which I thought was just so funny, man.
Oh, thanks, dude. Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's just stuff like that, like I I don't want to take myself too seriously or the game too seriously. I think the people that watch me long enough kind of understand, what I'm like or my type of humor. But at the end of the day, it is really all about growing the game. Like I
Mm-hmm.
keep saying that, and we all want the same thing. We all want this game to succeed.
Yeah.
And I've always been very staunch on that perspective that investors and what they don't lead to the success of a game. They really don't, especially in a game's infancy. It's all about players. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about the player experience and everything like that. So that's what I tend to do. Sometimes it's a bit backwards, but and I like to keep people on their toes. So like you said, if I make one video about a certain way, I might try and make a sarcastic video go in the other direction.
Man, it was great, and I want to point out that I do have an episode all on how to deal with being tilted yourself. So that
Oh,
is the I guess the third piece of that puzzle. Episode 2 is the second thing I ever talked about. But no, it's great, man. I do agree that the players are where the game needs to be to kind of survive, and I think for the most part, we've gotten past that early stage where the player base was low. It's growing every day, that's for sure. We're getting great coverage, which you had done coverage this past weekend for a ProQuest local to you. How did that go?
Oh, that was, geez, what an experience, Tommy. That was pretty interesting. It just started off as I couldn't attend because I had people in my household that are COVID positive, so I wasn't able to attend this tournament. And Fluke from over at Fluke and Box called me up and said, "Oh, why don't you just come hang out and we can stream it to your channel and you can just watch the games and talk." And that's what it was. It originally was just my intent to sort of be a part of it and watch my mates play Flesh and Blood, and it sort of gained a bit of momentum, and it seemed like a lot of people enjoyed it. So
Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
tuned in quite for a little bit there. It was a lot of fun. You had I think you hit over 100 people watching, which is like great for just a random. Well, for us in the U.S., it was a random Friday night, and and people just want to watch people play. And I think we even
yeah.
chatted about it before we even started up, and it's great. And it's just one more positive thing for the player base. I think now. Seeing as LSS and Flesh and Blood were originated in the Southern Hemisphere, which is where you're located, how is the Flesh and Blood community down under?
Oh well, in Sydney, it's look, it has been tough with lockdowns. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when I first got into Flesh and Blood, I was only playing it in store for approximately 2.5, 3 weeks before we went into what, a 4, 5 month lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, I didn't play a single game of Flesh and Blood. You were only able to play the game on Discord. So, um, taking that into account, I think the scene down here is very strong. Does it have a long way to go? Most definitely. But since we've been out of lockdown, every week that I'm out playing, I'm meeting new players constantly. Every store, I'm always meeting new players. It's so good to see. Plenty of LGSs are starting to build up their own local player base. So when I started, it was like there was core players that would go around to all the different LGSs, all the armories. In
Mm-hmm.
the last few months, what I've seen is each store is starting to build up their own core group of players, which is really, really good. So I think the scene in Sydney is very healthy. I think it's growing, and I think it will continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean it's great to hear. I mean the lockdowns are tough, but the fact
Mm.
that there's been perseverance through them is a great sign. I think even this game persevering through what the world has been dealing with is a great sign. Um, Now there's when I started playing, so I started playing like late July 2021, and I there was like a lot of talk of it was starting to blow up in the U.S. because we had the calling in Las Vegas along with the other callings after, and then U.S. Nats, and it seemed like there was a kind of a sentiment in the Flesh and Blood community because, like a lot of players had been playing in like New Zealand and Australia since like day one. And they thought, oh, the U.S. players have so much catching up to do. I wanted to get your opinion on that. Like, do you think that the U.S. is caught up, or is Pro Tour New Jersey going to be the true testing ground where we're going to have, the best players in the world out and, duking it out?
Look, I would love to say that we're the best, okay, but no, I think that's false. I think the American or the North American, the Asian players have got just as much reps, if not more reps, than a lot of the people down here. Don't get me wrong, there's some skilled players here in New Zealand or in Sydney, Australia, but there's definitely skilled players in America, in the Americas. Look, the Americas got a bigger pool.
Mm-hmm.
You guys probably already have a lot more active players than us down here in Australia and New Zealand. So when you have a bigger pool, you're going to have access to, more minds, better minds. So no, I definitely think that that's a false narrative that the Americans are behind the eight ball on Flesh and Blood. I don't believe that for a second. However, the Pro Tour is going to say a lot. Who's going to be in the top eight? That's going to be great.
Oh yeah.
But I think especially a lot of these, you look at Tariq and people like this, they've come over like proper TCG pro players, like, the real heavyweights, and they're coming in droves. You see it, Tommy. Every other day, I'm seeing someone on Twitter jumping on the Flesh and Blood bandwagon, which I absolutely love.
It's huge.
And it's only going to keep happening more and more. Trust me, over the next 12, 18 months, you're going to see dozens and dozens of these super, ultra, highly skilled TCG players hopping on board. And I tell you what, when they come in, the Aussies and the Kiwis they're going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm really excited to see how the Pro Tour shakes up here in 2 or 3 months. And first of all, and I've been very vocal about it, I think it's awesome. It's in my home state of New Jersey. You will be attending the Pro Tour. I mean, as at least a player of the calling in New Jersey, right? You're coming to my home state.
Yeah, basically going to be attending as the super fan. Going to be there gushing for every pro player. Yeah, no, I'm going there, Tommy. I'll be there. I'll be in the States for about a week. I'm going to be staying in New Jersey. Going to be playing in all the side events, the calling, the battle harden, and just being a part of the whole experience. I just thought, I was always going to attend the first Pro Tour because I knew the Pro Tour was going to be run parallel to a calling.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always my intent to attend. And then when the official announcement came out that it was in Jersey and the whole, PTI gifting ruling came in and all the, shenanigans that's gone on with that, I just sort of played into it and had a bit of fun with it. But in all seriousness, it was always my intent to go. I didn't want to miss it for the world. I think it is a monumental stake in the ground moment for Flesh and Blood. I think it is going to be a turning point. I think a lot of people are underestimating how important it is for the game to get, a full 12 months of OP under their belt, Pro Tours, World Champs, dozen callings, all that sort of stuff. And it is quite hard to coordinate that in our current conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't want to miss it for the world, Tommy. So I will be there. I'll be there for a week. I'll be participating in everything. I'll be hanging out. I've got a few spicy announcements. I'm having a lot of I'm having some things made up, some Tall Timmy stuff I'm going to be giving out to people I see there, and it's going to be a great time. Yeah.
I mean, I hope we get it. I mean, I know we'll get a chance to hang out at the event and hopefully outside, maybe grab a few beers. What now? Have you been to the States before?
I have, dude. I went there in 2017 to play in a Magic the Gathering Grand Prix in Vegas.
Nice.
And then I went a year later in 2018.
Now, have you been to New Jersey before? Is this your first time to the Jersey area?
First time to the East Coast. First time to the East Coast. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I will say, and I'll probably, catch some slack, from the listeners out there. New Jersey's the greatest state in the union. I won't be taking any arguments against that. But we have some great food, and there's some great food. And we're going to talk about some food at the end of the podcast. But there's a few things I want you to look out for in Jersey. Is the great food, obviously the great culture. You're going to be staying. I think you mentioned probably over in the Hudson River area, which near New York. So there's a lot to do out there, and it's going to be a great time. And I'm personally very excited for it all. Don't judge. For anybody coming to the Pro Tour New Jersey, do not judge New Jersey based on where the Expo Center is. It's just a couple chain restaurants and an Expo Center, but everything around there is great. So, but without further ado, let's get into a crack a pack before we get into our main topic.
All right.
I got a
Let's hit
pack.
that Fable, baby.
Oh yeah, let's get this fabled. So I have a pack of Everfest. How have you been liking Everfest so far?
Awesome. I love Substance. I really do. The artwork, the flavor. I just love the carnival theme. I love the paper packs. I can actually open them. Jeez, I struggle with the other packs. And yeah, I just like it. I think they knocked it out of the park. I still have a hunch, Tommy, that that's it. There's no unlimited for Everfest. I could be massively wrong, but that's my feeling at the moment.
I have a similar hunch as well. I think the unlimited and first edition, I guess, kind of way of doing it is going to go the way of the dinosaurs. I think. It's I don't know. It's a little tough. It was a great way to start the game. I think that maybe going forward, maybe not so much, but we will see. But yeah, I agree. Everfest has been great. My only gripe with it, and I've mentioned this before, is that you can't draft this set. And I'm a big drafter. You've mentioned draft earlier. Tales of Aria, I could draft, every day of the week if I had the time. So that's my one gripe with Everfest. I like the supplements, but I need more draft.
And we needed light warrior cards. That's the only gripe I have.
Oh yeah. I've been playing a lot of Bolton, and they got some juice, but not really that much juice in this. We need something specifically for Bolton, but I think we'll get there. We'll have to get more light and shadow cards, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So first out of the pack is Blue Macho Grande. This is a Guardian attack action, 8 attack, 3 defense, has dominate, costs 7.
Yeah, it's a great card.
It is very good. I think
especially in blue, right?
Yeah, the blue one's where you want to be, I think. And I believe it was this or February's promo at the Armories. It looked pretty cool.
Correct.
Next we got Red Twin Twisters. This is the ninja attack actions. 1 for 3 attack, 2 defense. It has choose one. When our Twin Twisters gains, when this hits, your next attack this combat chain gains +1. Or Twin Twisters gains +1, has go again. What do you think about that?
You think? Oh, I think it's like 1 for 3 with go again, right?
Yeah, 1 for 3 with go again, or 1 for 4 with go again. I think leg tap's just better. It has more application, but I don't play a lot of ninja, so.
Yeah, I don't either, and I think that I think the spots are quite tight in those decks anyway. Maybe that card doesn't have enough legs to push into the deck.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Cool card regardless. If you're low on the cards that you need for the deck, you can definitely throw that in. Next we have Yellow Wax On. This is a 0 cost ninja defense reaction. While Wax On is defending an attack action with cost 0, it has +2 defense and has a base defense of 2.
Are the Katsu control decks playing this card?
I'm not sure. I don't know if Katsu Control is really in a great spot right now. I think that we're seeing a lot more aggro Katsu. But I could see the yellow and red seeing play. In like you bring in for the I guess like the mirror match is pretty good. At the yellow its base is 4 defense, which is good, and the red is 5. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess the other for the yellow at least, it is two Kodachis if you pitch it with the 0. So nice card. I'm still waiting for wax off. We got the wax on. We need the wax off.
I will be getting that.
Yeah. We need to go to the next one. Steadfast Blue. This is a 3-cost Guardian instant. Prevent the next 4 damage that would be dealt to your hero this turn by a source of your choice.
But seems like a good sideboard card when you're playing against arcane decks. I love the artwork in that card too. The artwork is amazing.
So cool with the big purple kind of like arcane. It looks like arcane damage is coming in. He's just blocking it. It's so sweet. Yeah.
Are they playing that in the sideboard? Are the Guardian decks playing that in the sideboard for Kano matchup, or not really relevant at the moment?
I think some are actually playing it in the sideboard for Starvo because it's not blocking, so it is preventing a bunch of the damage from like Crippling Crush and like Oakenolds and stuff like that. So I think a good card. I think probably more of the red ones are seeing play, but the blue one's fine too. Next we have Veiled Intentions. This is a card that hasn't really seen much play. It's 1 for an illusionist action with 2 defense. The next attack action card you play this turn is illusionist in addition to its other card types and gains +2 Phantasm. And when this is destroyed, draw a card, and let's go again.
Is that the banquet artwork, Tommy?
Yeah, this is the banquet artwork.
And whenever I see that at the moment, I'm just thinking of the Pro Tour banquet that James White said LSS is putting on. I just look at that card and and envisage that is what it's going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be pretty funny. Oh my god. Not a great card, unfortunately. I mean, it's fine. Just not really finding its place in Prism as it stands. I think could see some play in like a new illusionist if we ever get one. Next, we got Fatigue Shot. Are you much of a Ranger player?
I'm not a Ranger player. I just haven't been drawn to that class, to be honest. Not yet, anyway. I haven't really been drawn to that class.
That's fair. It's like the people who play Ranger are all Ranger all the time.
Yeah,
they're really into it. But I haven't really dabbled in it outside of Limited. But the Fatigue Shot, kind of interesting. This is the red one. It's 1 for a 5-attack arrow with 3 defense. When it hits a hero, the base attack of the first attack action card they play during their next turn is halved, rounded up. Good on hits. That's what the arrows do.
Yeah, exactly. I love taxing effect cards. Like, let me go back and cry a river about Bolton. How good would it be if Bolton had some on-hit taxing effects?
Oh,
yeah. Like any deck that's, that I guess that's why the new sexy Bravo is so powerful. It's because it has a lot of on-hit effects, disruption, taxing effects, and I think Ranger. If you're playing Ranger, that's the benefit, right? Without the on-hit effects, without the taxing effects, the deck is pretty meh.
Anemic, yeah, big time. Yeah, it's fine. I guess there's probably some better arrows, but I think Fatigue Shot might have a shot going forward. Especially if you're trying to hit hard, maybe against Brute, you do want to double block against that because all of a sudden your Brute cards, stink. Next we got Payload. This is a mech card. This is the yellow one, 2 for a 5-attack, 3 defense. If you've boosted this combat chain, it gains Dominate. I think the red one's pretty good.
Have you played Mechanologist or played against much Mechanologist?
I play against quite a bit. I never play the deck, but friends of the show, Capolo, he's a big mech player, and Dana, who came on, she's a mech player. She plays a lot of our local events. Not necessarily my forte, but I do know that Capolo did play an aggro version of mech over the weekend that played the Red Payload.
Nice one. Yeah, I've only ever played against the deck twice ever, and they've both been in Blitz. So I don't know how I have some ideas of how the deck's supposed to operate, but I've never really seen it in first person. I haven't had enough exposure to the deck, but it does look cool.
It's a cool deck. I think the best thing about it is you can kind of go either mid range, aggro, or control. A lot like Katsu, in that regard. It just needs a little bit more, I think, to be top tier. But you see one get into a top 8 every once in a while. It's a little tough right now with Starvo, which we'll get to. The foil is a blue Wild Ride. This is 2 for 4 attack, no defense. When you attack with it, draw a card, discard a card at random. If a card with 6 or more is discarded this way, it gains go again. I should also mention it is a brute card. I think the red one is the only one you want to be playing.
That's right, and I think it's a good card,
It is.
especially the looting effect. Is it draw a card, discard a card?
Yeah, it's at random.
Oh, it's at so draw a card and discard a card at random.
Mm-hmm. So it's like pulping in a way.
Mhm.
But just not. I mean, I've seen the red one show up in some like super aggressive lists of brute, and I guess that's just the only time you ever want it. Because if you want to block with this card, well, you can't. So, so
I think it requires maybe a little bit of setup.
mhm.
You'd want to make sure you have a hand that you're not going to whiff on the discard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I
Yes.
think it's got ups. Like when brute gets go again, dangerous,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
dangerous.
Pretty cool. But we got some rares. It doesn't look like any fables, unfortunately.
Oh,
We have Amulet of Haven Call. It's a 0 for a generic action item. This one's so weird. It has go again, but it has a defense reaction. You can destroy it, search your deck for a card named Rally the Rear Guard, add it to the chain link as a defending card, then shuffle. Activate it only if you have no cards in hand.
yeah, you got to. That's a tall order, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot for nothing.
Yeah.
Or yeah. How do you feel about I know a common complaint about Everfest was all the talismans and items and how did you feel about that? I didn't mind it. I think it's probably a setup for something in the future, but
Yeah, the way that I see these early sets, and they truly are early sets, LSS is building the foundation for a house, right?
mhm.
They haven't even put the frame up yet. They definitely haven't got to laying the bricks or anything like that. They are just trying to build a foundation for the game.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a lot of these seemingly, cards that do nothing cards. But you know, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, these cards might be very, very important in certain
Mhm.
decks. So, yeah, when I look at it, I don't get too caught up on that sort of stuff. Not now. The game's too young. It's too fresh.
Yeah. And buds, fresh and buds, right?
That's
No.
right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you, and it does. They made them cold foils for a reason. I think too. I think the fact that I think there has to be something down the line. Like all of a sudden, all these like random cold foils are going to be worth something one day. Now the last rare is Emeritus Scolding, which is 2 for a wizard action. This is the red one. It has 3 defense. Deal 4 arcane damage to target hero. If it was played during an opponent's turn, deal 6 instead.
I like that card. I love the artwork. Big shout out to Matt, the artist on that card. I really
Mhm.
like that a lot. There's been speculation that they think that might be the new wizard hero, maybe in future sets.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. Have you heard
god,
that?
I think that would be awesome. It got some Gandalf looking,
Yeah,
stuff going
yeah,
on. That would be
yeah.
very
So
cool.
it would be cool. It would be cool.
Do you play much Kano or play against much Kano?
I've only look the two decks I've only ever played is Bolton and KO. That's it.
All right.
That's the only two decks I've ever played. I don't pretend to be an experienced Flesh and Blood player by no means. Have I played against a lot of Kano? Oh yeah. In Blitz, God,
Mm-hmm.
I played against Kano so many times. We have a lot of very passionate Kano players down here, so I played against them in Blitz a lot.
They're dangerous in blitz, man. I'll tell you that. So awesome. So that was a Kraken pack. Now let's get to the main topic here. So you got to cast a ProQuest that was local to you, and the conversation as of late in Flesh and Blood over the past couple weeks has been Starvo, Sexy Bravo as you like to call him. Very very strong deck. You know, right out of the gates from Everfest. You know, super consistent, is winning a lot of events, racking up quite a few living legend points, if you ask me. And there was a brief moment, I think, after last week's ProQuest. It's like, is this the only deck that can win right now? Now, I think that's not true. I think we've seen some other heroes enter the mix in terms of being top tier. You know, so you got your Starvo, and then you got Prism, who's kind of the Starvo killer, and then you got Viscerai, and I think some other Rune Blades like Chain and Briar will show up, but those are the main three. I think Starvo, Prism, and Viscerai are really what are dominating these top eights right now. What are your thoughts on the meta as it stands?
All right. The meta. Look, I think the meta is in a good place. I know, shoot me down, people. But the hero pool for CC is still small. You know, I don't think people are looking, you know, forward thinking enough to think how different things will be when we have 35, 40 CC heroes. But at the moment, with the card pools that we have, I think the meta's okay. I think that depending on where you look around the world, you're seeing, you know, different amounts of, you know, decks in the top eight. Sometimes you're seeing, you know, Sexy Bravo overrepresented. Other places you're not. So I'm a big fan of just letting the meta sort itself out first. Okay, giving it a chance to iron out the kinks. You're going to have cycles. It's going to be interesting because Flesh and Blood isn't a rotating format. Sure, there's an argument that there's soft rotations that are actually in place, but at the end of the day, I think we need to give it a bit of time. I don't think there is a clear winning deck yet. I think, like you said, Viscerai, Prism, Sexy Bravo, arguably a couple of other decks on any given day can take out a tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with you that, you know, definitely the CC hero pool is quite small right now. You know, we are in a better place this week as opposed to, you know, maybe right after the Battle Hardened in Philadelphia. Starvo, aka Sexy Bravo, aka Brass, which is what Flake called it on the show, because it's BRA and then star of the show SS, so Brass. I don't know, but you know, we are in a much better place. But do you think that, you know, this is a common thing that people are talking about? Is Starvo pushed, you think, the design on Sexy Bravo, besides his, you know, obvious sexiness on the card art? Is he pushed from a gameplay standpoint?
Every new hero is going to be pushed. Okay, or I should say there's going to be one hero, at least one hero in every set that LSS will push the envelope. Okay, I made a video on this a long time ago after Bri just came out, I think, that if you've been around long enough, this is what game designers, they have to sell boxes, right?
Yeah.
Like if all the new heroes were behind the eight ball from the other heroes, like people just wouldn't be excited about it. Now I do get it. It's a tough. It's a tightrope, right? It's very very tricky to how much do we push it. But I played an armory the first Friday that Everfest was legal, so that would have been Thursday American time. I played against Sexy Bravo twice that night. One friend brewed up a defensive version of the deck, and one friend of mine brewed up the ultra aggro, trying to activate his ability on nearly every hand. I played 2 matches against my mate Ruben, and he activated that ability every time except for one. in 2 matches.
Yeah.
And I made a tweet that night saying, this is now the premier aggro deck. I'd never seen anything quite like it. It's like I came to a gunfight with a bloody paddle pop stick. Like, it was unbelievable, the raw power of the deck. Now, is the deck beatable? Yeah, for sure. Was I prepared to face that? No, I wasn't. Do I think it was pushed? Yeah, for sure. Do I think it's pushed too far? I think only time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say at this stage, no, I don't think it was.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think they from a top down design standpoint, I think that they were on the right track. Right, it makes sense. You get the earth side of it, you get the ice side of it, you get the lightning side of it. Should it have been as easy to reveal? And I think that some people are talking about maybe an errata that doesn't allow you to show or pulses can only count as one element. I'm not here to decide whether or not that's the right thing, but it is format defining right now, and in a way that Prism is prevalent, because Prism kind of can handle Starvo quite a bit, and then Viscerai is just super explosive right now, which is kind of fun to see. Viscerai gets the Rune Blade treatment finally, instead of all the new Rune Blades. You get the OG Rune Blade kind of having some fun. So the basically,
My opinion.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah,
No, sorry. Sorry, Tommy. My opinion is too with the deck is, first thing you said, erratas. I'm not a huge fan of erratas. I think that should be literally like the last option, the very, very last option when all other paths are exhausted. Then I think you should do an errata. I don't think an errata really benefits too many people. Secondly, to be honest, one of the things in that deck that I actually find the most oppressive, maybe it's just because of the hero that I play, it's the shield. It's the bloody stalagmite shield. Like,
oh, yeah.
Bravo without that shield, like Sexy Bravo without the ability to play that shield, doesn't seem like as big a problem as me. It's the fact that he does a crazy offensive turn, and then can sit back on your turn and disrupt you with frostbite tokens. So not only do you need to calculate how to block his turn, you need to work out how you're going to crack back, because you're going to have an extra pitch for the frostbite that they generate from blocking with the shield. So I find the shield is quite oppressive in that deck.
It is actually, and I've been playing quite a bit of Bolton myself, so I understand where you're coming from, because it ends up, instead of preventing a couple points of damage, it prevents like 7 points of damage in a turn, which it is oppressive, and it does feel weird that Stalagmite isn't a Oldham specialization, considering it's like his shield, right? That they talk about in all the lore. But I guess that's neither here nor there. Now, so when I wanted to talk about, like, when, as a player, when you're looking at a meta like this, very top heavy, very narrow, it seems like 3 decks are really controlling it, with some exceptions out there. I wanted to kind of talk about 3 different ways we can deal with a meta like this. So the first way I wanted to get out of the way, because I know that me and you are not like this, but if you can't beat them, join them. So, like, oftentimes, especially if winning is the end goal, and I know that we all like to win, but do we want to sell our souls is the real question. Playing one of the best decks is the best move. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, this is the most popular way of playing competitively. Luckily, there are 3 top tier decks to choose from, so you get to pick which one you like best. How do you find this kind of strategy when looking at a meta like this? Are you a fan of it? Obviously, it's a proven way to win, but is it the Tall Timmy way? I guess
It's definitely not the Tall Timmy way, Tommy, but it, like you said, it is proven. It's time and tested. This is the way spikes play games. I made a whole video on this. What makes a spike a spike? A thing that separates a spike from everyone else, a spike will always play the deck that they perceive to be the best. Always. May not be the best deck, but it's the deck they perceive to be the best. And it's usually close on the money anyway. So Do I have a problem with that? No, not at all. And if you are a spike and you do have goals to, get high elo, secure those, big victories, top eights, I would go as far as to recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be looking at playing the top decks. Like in an ideal world, a true spike in Flesh and Blood, it's a bit different to Magic because you could be on one deck and you could change your sideboard and do things like that depending on the meta. But I think the way that you play Flesh and Blood is as a spike, you have 6 or 7 heroes sleeved up and ready to go at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
Then, depending on the meta, you're able to make a decision at that time which deck you think is the best, and then you play that deck. And at the moment, like you said, it might be 3 decks potentially. So I have nothing wrong with that. It's tried and tested. You look at, Tariq and people like that have come into the game. They're only going to play the best decks, and they get the results with those decks.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Now, if you were a spike, if it was the tall spike instead of the tall Timmy, going into an upcoming ProQuest weekend, which of these 3 decks would you perceive to be the best? Which one would you want to sleeve up and sit down and really battle with?
Look, if I was a true spike and I knew that I had just say I could play all 3 decks equally as well. Okay, so that's the caveat there. I can play all 3 decks just as well as each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably at this point in time, I like that Aura's Prism deck. Okay, I really do. Just the fact that you're actually essentially adding an extra layer of armor. It's like a fort. You're essentially building a moat and a fort around your opponent. And your opponent is put in you're adding a decision to their decision tree every turn. And I like doing that. I like making my opponents think, and I like making it easy for me so I don't have to think. But I think that great way, Tommy, is making your opponents think every turn. Do I hit the aura or do I go for the face? Do I get in that extra 4 damage? Or do I have to live with the consequences of what that aura is going to do in the following turn or this turn? And that makes very complicated decisions for your opponent. And you can just sit back there and just react to that. So for me, Prism, that's what I'd be playing.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you here. I think that Prism really preys on your opponent's ability to make the right decisions, and
Yep.
and I think that's probably its biggest strength. Obviously against the best player in the world, they're almost always going to make the right decision in that matchup because they've practiced it. But if you're going to a ProQuest, with all the Tom, Dick, and Harrys in the world, they're gonna look at it and say, wow, I think I just want to go face, but in reality, most of the time it feels like you're not supposed to go face. You just got to destroy those auras before they kill you. But
I know, I know for Bolton, I play against Prism. I've played against Prism a fair bit. I haven't played against this 27 Aura deck Prism, but
mm-hmm,
I've played against your traditional aggro and your hybrid Aura decks. And usually, as a Bolton player, the only aura that I'm concerned about is Genesis, right? So as
mm-hmm.
soon as I see that come down, I'll piss that out of the way, and then otherwise I'm on the face. I'm
Yeah.
just racing the clock. That's generally how I approach it.
What version of Bolton are you playing? I should ask. Which weapons?
Okay, so if we're talking about CC at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
CC, I was playing just before I've gone into isolation. I was playing Raiden.
Nice.
I played in I think 3 CC armories, 3 since Everfest has dropped. Going okay, like 3-2, 2-2, 3-1, that sort of record. Um, I've been talking to a lot of passionate Bolton players, and they're saying maybe the tide's turning, maybe we need to go back to Sabres.
mm-hmm.
So if I was playing at a ProQuest this weekend, I'd probably be playing Sabres at the moment with a hybrid model with Raiden as well in my package. but I would try and construct the deck in a way that's gonna make the sabers more powerful. So yeah, that's how I'd run Bolton at the moment.
That's what I like to hear. I've been on Raiden myself, and it kind of leads into the second way to kind of approach these metas, and I think I like to call it attack the meta. You know, sometimes you got to make a call for the tournament that's going to attack a certain deck that you think is going to be prevalent. So we saw examples of this at Las Vegas calling when Tyler Horspool brought Prism to the chain heavy tournament. He thought, it's like, you know what, I have a really great matchup against chain. I have poor matchups against a lot of the other decks, but if I just play a bunch of chains all day, I think I can win this tournament. And the same thing happened with, former guest of the show, Isaac Jessen from the Attack Action podcast, who brought Ice Lexi to the U.S. Nats. Made top 8, unfortunately had a really tough loss in the top 8, but was really preying on all those Briar decks out there. So, being wary of the other decks could be, kind of be where you want to be. And, like we're talking, like Sabres Bolton, it might be a really big meta call right now because it can go the distance. You just got to be careful.
I think at the moment, yeah, your Sabres Bolton deck, you probably want to be running more blue pitch because of all the ice tokens and frostbite tokens floating around. Probably want to play a little bit more blue pitch than normal. You want to have more D reacts in your 80, and I think it's got good game into every hero except for Oldham, to be honest. But I like that point that you made about that's a very good strategy. Okay, if you have a deck or a rogue deck that you know has an 80-85% win rate against the flavor of the month, and you think that Sexy Bravo, whatever the case, or Prism is going to make up 40% of the meta, then maybe that's a call that you want to make. And you might be like, you know what? I'm 80-85% against this deck, and the other decks I'm 50-50, but maybe you're willing to run that. And just like in Mod and in Magic, a lot of how you go in a tournament really comes down to matchups. So if you get blessed by the gods and you have your favorable matchups, you can run pretty hot in a big tournament.
Yeah, so I think that is actually another great example is the Arcbound Geek, Pedro, who took down Italian Nats with Kano out of nowhere.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Which he realized that I can output more damage than these Briars. So it's something that kind of it might take a little more work than just picking up the best deck, but sometimes it can really pay off in dividends. You just got to be kind of wary of other decks that could match up well against you. Like we're saying with Bolton Sabres, if you think some Oldhams are going to be running around, maybe it's just not the place to be. But you have to make almost a gamble in that sense. So I kind of like this way of looking at it. You look at even some Reinars right now that can kind of go defensive against I guess like the Starvos and the chains. I think we saw it in the ProQuest that you casted. I think Yazi was on a Reinar that he went super defensive and he's outlasted the chain, which was really cool.
Yeah, his whole take on Reinar is to play a very defensive, whittling your opponent down, getting incremental edges over the course of a 6, 7, 8 turn game. That's the way that he plays Reinar. I don't know if that's the most effective, but he's been on that deck since day one, and he's led to believe that is the best way to play Reinar. Is there a world where you can play a hyper aggressive Reinar deck? Maybe. Maybe you can, but yeah, and that's the great thing about the game. There's a couple of ways, sometimes 2, 3, 4 ways that you can run a hero. Just like Bolton Raiden is completely different to Bolton Sabres. It's a different style of deck.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's actually going to lead us to the third way you can kind of approach a meta like this: just play what you like. Who cares? Yeah. Sometimes you play the deck that you like and that you're comfortable with is the way to go. For me, that would be Leviah. It's especially Blood Debt Leviah. I tried a no Blood Debt Leviah, and I felt like I just wasn't doing it right. It's just like this isn't the deck I love, and it's probably the way to be right now. But yeah, I kind of want to swing in with a Hexagore, and it's gonna be a lot more fun. But I just might not win. I mean, it's maybe if winning's not exactly what you care about, but you also want that small slim chance of making the top 8 with that deck you love. You want to be for glory and like just be the guy who did it, the guy or gal who does it. Is this a way you kind of like to approach it, Tim?
Hey, you're a Timmy at heart, Tommy. You're a Timmy at heart when I hear that. No, that's literally how a Timmy. I believe how a Timmy, operates and how they look at a tournament. Do you sacrifice that bit of fun to play the flavor of the month deck? Well, a Spike will do that because they'll have more fun winning.
Oh yeah.
Okay, over playing their favorite deck, they will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whereas a true Timmy will be willing to sacrifice some wins with the hope and the dream and that fantasy in their head that they are going to take this deck all the way, that they're going to be the person. Geez, I was doing that with Mill in Magic for bloody nearly 8 years. I'd always thought it was going to be the best one day, and apparently now it's pretty hot. So yeah, so I would say that is definitely a way that you can approach things. Play the deck that you love. The wins are going to feel always sweeter when you play your own deck or your brew or a rogue deck or an off meta hero. I also think Timmys can hide behind the fact. Sometimes they use it as a crutch because if they get like a bad result, they can go, "Oh, but I was playing a crap hero." You know what I mean? So, and that's fine too, as long as you're aware of that. I got that's not a problem. I find that kind of cute. So yeah, I think that's a good approach. I think you'll have a lot of fun that way. But if you're the person that winning is the ultimate enjoyment of a game, then you're probably going to let yourself down.
Yeah, exactly. Because even the best in the world lose a lot of the time. So, yeah. So those are the 3 different ways, and I want to thank you, Paul, for coming on the podcast. I would like for you to please plug everything that you need to plug. I know you have YouTube and Twitter, whatever you want to plug right now.
Awesome, Tommy. Well, thanks heaps for having me, mate. I really appreciate it. This is our first face-to-face chat, and I'm sure it'll be the first of many.
Yes.
And I look forward to seeing you in the flesh and blood in a couple of months' time. So yeah, that was awesome. How you can get in contact with me? Well, geez, you can send me tweets. You can see me on Facebook. I'm on the Facebook. I'm active on the Facebook fan pages, Flesh and Blood Art House page, things of that nature. You can check out my Tall Timmy YouTube channel, comment in my videos. I read all the comments and I try and get back to everyone. If you see me in May, come up and say hello to me. Just come up and say good day. I'd love to chat to you. So yeah, I look forward to meeting all of you out there.
How tall are you? For I guess, geez, you're gonna say something in meters.
No,
do you know how?
I'm still an old school Aussie. So old school Aussies is funny. We still use is it the metric system, or I get this other way around? We still measure, old school Aussies will still measure height in feet, and will still measure baby's weight in pounds.
Okay.
For some reason, but maybe Australians who were born after 1990 might go by kilos and centimeters, but generally speaking, anyone around my age and older will still refer to their height in feet and babies in pounds. I don't know why that's the case. So anyway, I'm 6'6".
Oh, okay. So you're really tall. So it's gonna be hard to miss you at Pro Tour New Jersey. Well, that's exciting. I'm pumped for us to get to hang out in the flesh and blood. Thank you again for coming on the podcast. All you listeners and buds out there, you can find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. You can check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. I post the audio of all the podcasts on the YouTube, and I do some other stuff on there as well, like the Fresh 5, where I talk about 5 things, flesh and blood, 5 or so minutes. And join the Discord, is the Buds. We hang out there. We do all kinds of fun stuff. And yeah, so for the end of the podcast, I always like to talk a little bit about food. I want you to tell me a little bit about some food, maybe down in your area that you like in particular. Maybe it could be native to Australia or just something you really enjoy.
Ooh, awesome. That's a good question. So I'm fortunate enough. I live in Sydney, Australia, and has a huge, diverse, culturally diverse community here. So I'm quite spoiled. I can drive, 15 minutes one way, and I can eat some of the most delicious Vietnamese food in Australia. I could drive 15 minutes the other way and eat some of the most delicious Middle Eastern food in Australia. And for all different subcultural groups. So I guess that's the flavor of Sydney. And I'm not fussy when it comes to food, Tommy. Geez, I'll eat bloody anything. So I suppose there's one sort of food that we don't get down here that I really love when I go to the States. We don't get a lot of Latin American food or Mexican food just because we don't have a lot of that population living here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we don't get. But everything else here, we have some of the best Asian food, Middle Eastern food in the world. Easily, I indulge in that quite frequently. Australians, though, we love a snag on the barbie. I love cooking a T-bone steak on the barbie with a few beers. That never goes astray. So
Nice.
a
So
good barbecue.
when you get to New Jersey and we pop into a taqueria, what are you ordering? The Latin American food. What's going to be your go-to order?
Sorry, Tommy. I don't want to seem a little bit dumb here, but what is a taqueria?
So like usually a place where you get tacos.
Oh, okay.
We have in Jersey especially we have a pretty large Latin American, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Colombian, a lot of different Latin American populations, and there's some great spots, especially for some authentic Mexican food. So it's just like anything, anything from burritos to like I don't know the best nachos
So
and tacos.
is Ria restaurant? Is Ria restaurant like when you said taco Ria? Is that what?
I actually don't know. I mean, I should probably look into it, but it's like I guess it's a Spanish name for a place where you get tacos.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a bit of everything. I'm probably going to if they have like say 7 or 8 different tacos on the menu, I'll just get one of each.
All right, that's
So
the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that will, like something and get like 5 of that. If I see a menu of like 10 different things or 10 different tacos I haven't had, I'll just get all 10 and
Oh,
try them
yeah.
all.
There's a place near me, which isn't near the expo center, unfortunately, that has I forget what the official name of it is, but it's like a cabeza taco. So it's made from like the cow's like head and tongue and all that stuff, which sounds like crazy, but it's so good. And a lot of the taqueritas in the area, especially the authentic ones, have that. So
Oof, let's
yeah.
do it.
Yeah, let's do it. But thank you again, the Tall Timmy, everyone. Please have a great, safe week. Talk to you next week.